Coming into the split, we had some very interesting power rankings. I'd say very different than they are now. So we're going to take a chance. Deficio put out some of those power rankings. We're going to take a chance to make our own power rankings so we can bring up the standings. The first thing that we're going to look at is based on the current standings, if we did not have a two-group system, we'll see exactly where each of these teams would be ranked. You can see it right now. Fnatic, H2K, G2 Esports, of course, win match differential is counted in there. And I want to take a chance to go through each of these teams and talk about which ones we feel are correct, where we think teams should be placed. I think the easiest one for me, honestly, starting at first place, is their thoughts on Fnatic. Are they the best team right now in Europe?
Right now, Fnatic, they are the best team in Europe. I think at the moment, while they did abandon the style they played before Rift Rivals, the new 80 carry picks, like the standard 80 carry picks for Reckless, has actually given Fnatic a much stronger 2v2 bottom lane, which is something they can utilize effectively. And I think Caps is actually playing extremely well at the moment. So the current meta seems to be okay for Fnatic, and they still look very good.
Sheepy, would you agree? Fnatic right now, we don't have to talk about by how many margins, but would you say they are the #1 team in Europe?
I mean, deservedly so, because they have just like the most wins. They have been most consistent. They've been beating like all the teams. So I think it's fair to put Fnatic on the top. And unless other teams show up and beat them, straight up, I think they are comfortably sitting there at the top.
All right, well, that was the easy one. It gets progressively harder from here, I think it's safe to say. Now, H2K is currently ranked above G2 based on game differential here, but who do we think is the second best team in Europe right now? Any takers?
I think G2 Esports are the second best team in Europe. They just played against H2K like a week ago, won that series. I think also G2 Esports are looking closer to the form they had last split, not exactly at the MSI peak just yet, but I think the meta is great for them, with Trick playing a lot of tanks. And I also think right now that if H2K and G2 Esports played each other, I think G2 Esports will have at least a slight edge over H2K in different elements of the game. So I think they are the second best team in Europe, and they're the only ones who can challenge Fnatic right now.
All right, do you think that's fair to say, Sheepy? Do you think G2 coming back into form? We know that they're looking stronger. They're definitely winning a lot more games, but second place, where you feel like they belong, is there another team that you think may be more deserving of second best in Europe?
I think that G2 right now has like this upward drift. I think so too, that the Trick is doing more now in the jungle, having like a little bit more comfortable picks. And I think that G2 generally in the beginning of the split is the only reason we would even doubt them. Like if you would just cut that off, then I think G2 is looking kind of like usual. And yeah, I think the only downside for G2 is that they need to still play more games and like show more consistency, because they have been looking bad in the beginning of the split, and you can't just like put that away. So I think that's right now deservedly so they're on the second spot, but I would really love to see more games from them, and just to see how they fare over a longer period of time. And yeah, I think that's still very, very fair.
All right, now the next 4 teams I think are it's safe to say H2K, Unicorns, Love, Splice, Misfits. This is much more difficult than I think the vast majority. So if you'll amuse me, I'd like to jump to the bottom of the table, and I want to focus our main attention at the middle to round things out. So I want to talk about bottom 4. Is there anything between Vitality, Roccat, Mysterious Monkeys, Ninjas in Pajamas, based on what we've seen this week, based on what we've seen in the past? Does this look out of order to you? Is it Vitality 6, Roccat 7, or rather Vitality 7, Roccat 8, Mysterious Monkeys 9, Ninjas in Pajamas 10?
Is Monkeys better than Roccat right now?
I'm not sure. We just played against them, right? I mean, they took a game of Unicorns of Love, so...
First place! Straight away.
But Rocket took 2, so
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit hard. I think that, sadly, NIP has always been like losing like 1 to 10 is their record right now, I think.
Yeah.
They have been consistently winning early games, though, even against the top teams. But I'm not sure if that's a sign of a strong team if you win early and then still lose the games. I think we've been even joking about this, that's a little bit unlucky for NIP that they always, lose in the late game. But it's actually nice to see that they are winning early games. So, but they are 110, so it's really, really hard.
It's hard to move them.
It's hard to move them up there. Yeah, I think Rocket showed most promise against top teams.
Yeah.
And Mysterious Monkeys is just like between, not as bad as NIP, but Rocket at least took games from top teams, so
That's fair. I think keeping like this is fair. I actually think there's quite a jump from Vitality to the bottom 3. Some people might even try and make a case for Vitality almost sneaking into top 6, but I think that is difficult to say, because we haven't seen them, destroy Splice or Misfits Gaming. So I think Vitality is sitting in the correct spot, but they are a step above the 3 guys above them, in my opinion. Oh, sorry, under them, in my opinion.
All right. Looks like some agreement there in terms of the bottom of the table. Now we get to the meat of the discussion. This is my favorite. So this one's going to be tough, I think, to go through. So what I would like before we start the main discussion, I just want each of you to take a chance, list your third, your fourth, your fifth, and your sixth in your preferred order, and then we can discuss the differences there, because I think we'll get a little too into the nitty-gritty if you guys start to debate on every position, although we will get the chance. So, Sheepy, I'd like to start with you. 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you think it stacks up in Europe right now?
I think that we have not been showing too much consistency, but in scrims we've been performing really well, also against H2K, so I would almost put us on 3rd place. And I think also when we are watching Fnatic in G2, we always feel that there's like opportunities that we could abuse against them. However, we didn't show that like so convincingly yet. I still think that our series, for example, against Fnatic was totally winnable from our end as well. But yeah, you know, props to always to the winner. With H2K, it's really hard to call, because I mean they've been doing better, I guess, and I mean it's a toss-up between those two. I think for Splice and Misfits, I think they are like deservedly so on those 2 positions. So I would rank Splice a bit higher, because I don't know, they just look a little bit more consistent, and also from the past, I think they own a little bit more respect than Misfits.
All right, Unicorns 11, 3rd place. You guys have been having, I think, a little bit of a shakier season. I'm curious, what your rankings would you be? Would you agree? Would you put Unicorns 11 the 3rd best team? Who would you put in that slot?
I would put H2K as number 3 right now. The faith is all in H2K at the moment. I actually think they played
Deficio,
super well lately. I know you're sitting right next to me.
Where's the faith?
It makes it hard, but at the same time, I think H2K has really shown that the last few weeks they have looked super good. The team fighting is much better in the late game, also with this meta where you draft a lot of team fighting comps, which seems to really benefit them. And Jankos on tanks is not an issue at all. He's still finding tons of ganks in the early game. So I actually think H2K look very well-rounded right now.
Let's say this. If H2K can find the consistency that they showed in their most recent series, Sheepy, would you think it's fair that they're in the 3rd place, or do you think Unicorns of Love still has that? Because I think the biggest question with H2K has been consistency.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the same for G2. I think if we just like cut off like the weeks, before the last weeks, then I think that they look way stronger than, over the entire split looking. So I think that's why the list right now is really fair. And we're like, we're putting right now how it is. And I think we have also shown some inconsistencies. I mean, the Nash throw, and some games just, that ends you the games. I mean, we lost also the game, but I mean, against every team, that's like unforgivable. And if that happens in playoffs like twice or like 3 times, you're just out. So we need to really be more consistent with like those major calls. And I think H2K didn't show like this kind of throw, but I think also on the opposite, if we are more consistent with Unicorns of Love, I think we have just shown like more different strengths. And if we can actually tap into that, I think then we can be like one of the strongest teams in Europe. But consistency is really hard to achieve with that playstyle.
To round this out, really to put a cap on this, 3rd, 4th, definitely debatable. Unicorns of Love or H2K. There's arguments to be made there depending on which team can find consistency. But the rest of the list as it stands, we are pretty much in agreement.
I mean, I think the only other thing you could kind of argue for right now, and this is obviously because we don't know how well you guys are doing in scrims, but from pure stage performance the last few weeks, like after Rift Rivals as an example, Splice and Misfits Gaming, I don't think they're very far away from you guys in terms of stage performance. I actually think before this week, when we saw Splice and Misfits Gaming lose 2-0 in both their series quite convincingly, you could definitely make a case for them actually being higher up in the rankings. And Splice last time they did beat you guys when you guys were actually looking really good. You guys obviously playing each other very soon as well. And if they win that game suddenly and look really good once again, trying to maybe rely a bit more, also rely as much on copy as they did this week, suddenly I actually think Splice, you can make a case for them being even higher on this list. And Misfits Gaming, sadly to me, are too reliant on just one style and a little too many question marks in terms of their actual execution, especially when they get challenged. I didn't say we should move.
No, don't. He's in their clothes. He's in their clothes. Put him back. Come on. You grab the team. I love you.
Whatever, man.
You can definitely make the case for it.
All right, so we're gonna let's lock this in. We can say that 3 through 6, incredibly close, I think we can say. Regardless of your interpretation, depends on execution, depends on the weeks to come. 1 and 2 feel pretty set, although there is still some arguments for G2 potentially dropping or going up, depending on how they can find their consistency. But overall, I think pretty solid list, pretty solid impressions, especially as we get closer to playoff. Of course, you guys can let us know what you think. Head on over to social media. Give us a shout out. Maybe Deficio's wrong. Maybe Sheepy's wrong. Maybe I'm wrong for
maybe Deficio's wrong.
Trying to make a list.
I think Drakus is wrong as the host. Where's your opinion?
The easiest way.
That's why I didn't put my name on the list.
Yes.
That's smart,
that's so. He's just I put Fnatic in the bottom. Publish it.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Well, we'll soon have the final results as we have 2 weeks left in the summer split with a close race in both groups. The stage is set for an explosive finish.